All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone, to our Food Systems webinar, Food Education and Empowered Development. To begin, I would like to call on Ms. Milet Tendero from the Office of the Vice President for Mission Integration, Ateneo de Manila University, for the opening prayer.
Good afternoon. For this afternoon, I've chosen a prayer of thanksgiving for the earth, for us to pray. It is a prayer from the congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph. We begin by making our sign of our faith. In the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of creation, we give you thanks for the gift of Mother Earth, her fertile soil, life-giving water, and the warmth of the sun, that together have birthed and brought forth the gifts of an abundant harvest. We pray in gratitude for the work of the farmers who have tilled and cared for the land, planted the seeds, and tended and gathered the harvest. May these gifts of Mother Earth and the work of human hands be treasured by those who receive the harvest and shared generously with those who hunger. Amen. In the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Hello, good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Justin Badion from the Ateneo Theology Department, and I will serve as moderator for today's webinar. Next slide, please. As you may all already know, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a great deal of disruption to the Philippine food system. Problems in the supply chain, coupled with rising shipping costs, currency depreciation, and export restrictions, have pushed domestic food prices upwards. However, despite this troubling reality, many people continue to extend themselves to those at the margins in order to respond to the call to feed the hungry, as evidenced with the rise of community pantries, community kitchens, and other food-related initiatives during these last few months and years. Similarly, many institutions and organizations have participated in the attempt to curb the rising trend of hunger during these challenging times and beyond. For the various Ateneos, our feeding programs and efforts are part of our continued community caritas and shall be the focus of our webinar for today. This webinar continues the series of virtual public conferences organized by the Ateneo de Manila, Xavier University, Ateneo de Davao University, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Philippines Joint Working Group on the Sustainable Development Goal number 2, Zero Hunger. This series aims to increase public awareness on the challenges brought about by food insecurity and undernutrition, and to explore pathways to contribute to sustainable ways forward on a variety of issues. This webinar on the theme of of feeding programs, entitled Food Education and Empowered Development, will showcase the sharing of experiences from various representatives from the different Ateneo universities across the Philippines who aim to give their insights and solutions on food systems issues through the lens of implementing feeding programs in their own communities. We also hope that in the future, you will be able to participate as well in further webinars in this series. So without further ado, I'd like to formally begin the webinar. Our first speaker is currently the director of the Ateneo Center for Educational Development. In her present post, she is deeply involved in the development of public schools in the Philippines, most of which face very challenging circumstances. The majority of students enrolled in Philippine public schools come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and she believes that a good education is key to breaking the cycle of poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker, Dr. Carmela C. Oracion.
Thank you very much, Sir Justin, and good afternoon, everyone. I am happy to be here in this webinar on food education and empowering development, or FEED, and I thank the organizers for allowing us to share the initiatives of the Ateneo Center for Educational Development in the continuing fight against hunger. The Ateneo Center for Educational Development is part of the organizational structure of the Ateneo de Manila University, and this was established in 1997 to spearhead the university's mission to close the poverty gap and improve quality of life through improving public basic education in scale. The center aims to move up the performance of public schools through initiatives that are needs-based, community-owned, and outcomes-based by engaging various units of the university, the school communities, DepEd at the national and local levels, and local government. The center facilitates partnerships with individuals and institutions to marshal human and material resources. In the work with public schools, we actually began with the traditional interventions for improving public schools, which include teacher training. So we did a lot of teacher training and preparation of instructional materials like the workbooks and the lesson guides that you see on the upper right. And then we encountered serious problems, no, that are being encountered in the public schools. Like, for example, many of the children are frequently absent because of headache and toothache, and we see how much dental care they need, so we organize dental missions for them. We also realized that many of the children who were declared as poor learners or non-readers actually couldn't see the chalkboard. No? They had poor eyesight. So we organized ophthalmic missions for them and provided them eyeglasses. Then we encountered the seriousness of hunger and malnutrition among a significant number of public school children, and that led us to feeding programs, which is the center of our webinar today. Two stories encountered in the course of our work with public schools served as impetus and continuing motivation for our involvement in the fight against hunger. The first story, this is about a grade 2 boy in Parañaque City. This was told to us by a grade 2 teacher in one public school in the city. And the story goes this way. One day, a grade 2 boy fainted. And we learned that unlike private schools such as Ateneo, it is normal for children to faint in public schools. So this boy fainted, and afterwards, when he regained consciousness, also nung himasmasa na siya, sabi ng teacher, "Oh, napano ka anak?" And the boy said, "Ay, Huwebes po pala ngayon." And that's how we encountered this particular reality that was not part of our radar in the past, no? Huwebes po pala ngayon meant it was his turn in the family to skip breakfast on Thursdays so that his siblings may have enough food to eat. The second story is an encounter with some parents in Mines Elementary School, a school in Quezon City, as we conducted focused group discussions to determine the needs of the school. In this particular group, we realized that many of the grade 4 girls came to school without underwear. So when we were having the focus group discussion with the parents, mostly mothers, we needed to ask the question to a point where we wanted to scold the mothers because of this. We asked them why. Why? As in, why do they send their children to school without underwear? But the response of one mother, seconded by the other mothers, really stunned us. She said something like this: "Kayo po, ma'am, kung meron kayong maliit na halaga at pipili kayo kung ang bibilhin ninyo ay pagkain o underwear para sa anak ninyo, ano po ang pipiliin ninyo?" So that began our initiatives against hunger, which started with small-scale feeding programs, feeding around 40 children in public schools through the Busog Lusog Talino program of Jollibee Foundation. However, that was very little, although that's helpful for 40 children, that's very little in public schools in the city. So in 2010, we started large-scale feeding programs in response to the problem of malnutrition and hunger among the public school children. Feeding programs boost a child's nutritional status and ability to learn. The photo that you see on the screen is one of the first few days of the feeding program. And at the time, we said, we will provide the food, but we will ask the parents to provide a counterpart, and that is to ask their children to bring spoons and forks and to bring their own baunan. However, we soon saw that the children were not bringing utensils, and we realized that they were not used to using utensils. And then they brought all sorts of baunan, like the empty cup noodles and so on, until even, the ice cream containers, half gallon, all sorts. Until one day, there was a boy who was lined up, and he had with him a flower vase, and we couldn't take that. And from that time on, we provided them decent baunans like what our own children bring to school for their baon. We built central kitchens in order to support our large-scale feeding programs. The one on the left-hand side is a central kitchen we constructed in Commonwealth, Quezon City. 4,000 meals are prepared in this kitchen every day to provide meals for 4 public elementary schools in the area. The central kitchen that you see on the right-hand side was constructed by the local government unit in Valenzuela City. Here, it reached a point where 18,000 to 20,000 meals were being prepared every day for all the public elementary school children who were part of the program in the city, and also some of the daycare centers. I'd like to say at this point that, hunger and therefore malnutrition and stunting persist. These haven't been solved, even with the interventions of organizations like ACE and other organizations around. Here's some data on the hunger rate in the Philippines. The annual average for 2021 is 13.1%. As of December 2021, that translated to around 3 million families. And although we can say that, 13.1, 11.8% are just a little over 10%, these are still 3 million or 2.5 million families. As of the first quarter of 2022, the record of SWS shows that 12.2% or 3.1 million families go hungry every day, and that's 18.6% in Metro Manila. These were the questions that the social weather stations asked of the participants in the study. Nitong nakaraang 3 buwan, nangyari po ba kahit minsan na ang inyong pamilya ay nakaranas ng gutom at wala kayong makain? Nangyari po ba yan minsan? Minsan lamang, mga ilang beses, madalas o palagi? No? And the survey shows these figures. So we know that hunger and malnutrition and stunting continue to persist. I mentioned a while ago that we started with the Busog Lusog Talino program with Jollibee Foundation, feeding 40 children in the participating schools. But there came a time when principals were approaching us left and right, requesting for assistance so that their malnourished children may be fed better, no, through the in-school feeding programs. At that time, they were usually feeding lugaw na walang sahog, these usual things, okay? And then in 2010, I shared with you that we started the pilot of the Blue Plate for Better Learning feeding program, and that's been expanded. We started in Quezon City, then this was replicated by the mayor of Valenzuela City, presently Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, and then this was also replicated by the mayor of Mercedes, Camarines Norte, and this has expanded in many places all over the country. Even Gawad Kalinga requested for our processes so that they may replicate this in many places, and they have succeeded in doing so. Because of our experience with the feeding programs, we had data and processes to share as the government tried to work on Republic Act 11037. So we feel grateful that we were able to contribute to the enactment of this particular law that provides funding for meal programs in public elementary schools. This one, though, is only for the malnourished children, so there's really nothing for the ones who are in the middle, no? And we know that, numbers cannot always be precise. Then, COVID-19 came, and we started the food packs program, which is what we are doing today. The virus forced us to adapt, to shift to alternative ways of bringing food to the children while preventing the spread of the virus. We know that in the fight against hunger, there is no time to lose. So as early as June 18, 2020, we started providing food packs to 500 school children and their families just to test the concept. We are very, very grateful and happy to share with you that today we are already providing 5,000 school children and their families, including 250 beneficiaries in the maternal, infant, and young child category. We're providing these 5,000 children and their families food packs every week. Why did we shift to food packs? Well, these food packs for us contained largely root crops, vegetables, and fruits. No? From a study that was conducted on our pre-pandemic feeding programs, data on the food groups included in the diet of the children revealed that less than 50% of children in Metro Manila have fruit, vegetables, milk, and milk products in their diet. And our decision at this point, as DepEd looks into the learning continuity plans for schools and started considering back-to-school initiatives, like blended programs and so on and so forth, for us, at least in the coming months and in the coming year, we shall keep the food packs program while we are recovering from the pandemic for the following advantages. With in-school meal programs, we are able to provide one child 5 meals per week. But with the food packs program, based on our surveys, 4 family members benefit from 4 to 8 meals per week. That's without rice, but rice can be their counterpart. We are told that each food pack is able to last a family 4 to 5 days. The operations are simpler. We don't have to bring many volunteers to the kitchen and risk the spread of the virus. we are able to directly help the farmers, unlike feeding programs where because our demands are less, we have to get from the traders. But now because of the volume, we bring in around 10 to 15 tons of vegetables every week. We're able to directly help the farmers. There's also greater assurance that the children are fed regularly in school. Sometimes they're absent and there are other reasons, so they're unable to go to the room, no, for the feeding program. And then we also feel that this seems to be more normal than in-school feeding. In the in-school feeding, you are called out of your classes to go to the feeding room and you're provided food. But this seems to be more normal because the mother or the father will cook food at home and provide food for the family, as you can see on the photo. We have included in our food packs program the first 1,000 days of life. These are pregnant women or infants or children in the young child category. The first 1,000 days are computed in this manner: 270 days pregnancy, 365 days infanthood, 365 days toddlerhood. This period of time is known as the golden window of opportunity. It's a critical period of growth and development, especially physically and cognitively. And we know that nutrition during this period can determine the baby's potential for the rest of their life. We looked into this period because there's already an intervention from the government for the school-age children and also for those in the daycare centers, but there's none for this particular category of children. Here are some photos that we can share with you, and you can see that the contents of the food packs are not little, no? And that's why the contents are able to last the families 4 to 5 days. Here are more photos. I'd like to share with you that in the first poster that we ever created, this little girl appeared. She was in grade 4 then. Maybe she's in grade 6 now, on the way to grade 7. She caught our attention because, you know, they're very poor. They don't have a home. She and her mother and another sibling lived in the park across the school, and they would be sent away every now and then. But she's very diligent. She wants to study, no? And that's why she became a beneficiary in our food packs program. At this point, I'd also like to share with you that more than being a charitable intervention, our meal programs and our food packs program, which we do in partnership with the schools, are also educational interventions. They are not just responses to the problems of hunger and malnutrition. They are educational interventions. We want the children who are beneficiaries to be able to complete their schooling so that they may have a better life and eventually get out of poverty. The food packs program that we are currently implementing has this cost: 90 pesos per week, or 360 pesos per month, or 3,600 pesos for 10 months or 1 school year. As I mentioned a while ago, the contents are not little. This girl that you see in the middle lives with a family in the Manila North Cemetery. And in fact, you'll see them here. I think I have a photo, or maybe it's not here, that she and her family were sharing the food in the cemetery, no, on top of a tomb. See, our ambition is to reach 10,000 children and their families. That would have translated to 36 million, and that's a lot. And people would have told us to stay away from it because we will not be able to get the money. However, if you take a look at this program cost here, it's not much. And we strongly believe, and we see that it's happening. We see that we can look for 10,000 Filipinos who will be able to give us, and who will be willing, more than willing, to give us 3,600 pesos, and that would already be a meal for one family for 1 school year, when, this is easily just a meal, not even a special one in a restaurant. We have also started to look into the connection between food waste and food insecurity. And that's also the reason why we're able to keep to a low cost the program. No? So in partnership with these organizations, for example, we're able to rescue food that is about to go waste and provide this to our beneficiaries. I'd like to close with this portion of a piece of writing, maybe a poem from one unknown author. And I'd like to share with you because we strongly believe in these words. It's a longer piece, no, but I just took this particular part. I was hungry, and you formed a committee to investigate my hunger. I was malnourished and stunted, and you organized a seminar on malnutrition and stunting. You investigated all aspects of my plight, yet I am still hungry. With these thoughts, I thank you for your interest in our programs. I thank you for joining us in this crusade against hunger, specifically undertaking actions that will really make a difference in the lives of the people who are hungry, especially the children. So with that, I turn over the screen back to you, Sir Justin.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oracion. I can really feel how timely that poem was at the end, a challenge in many ways to us uh, in our hopes to respond to that situation of hunger that we see. And it's good to see the efforts of ACE really being showcased in your talk. So thank you very much, Dr. Oracion. Um, so for now, let's move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is the current chairperson of the Ateneo de Davao University Community Engagement and Advocacy Council. Hashtag Make It Happen is his personal advocacy in all the engagements he works in, such as advocating for IP and children's rights. He is also currently serving as the chairman of the Board of Trustees of Tambayan Center for Children's Rights, a non-government organization looking after the welfare of children who may be abused and are in conflict with the law. If not engaging with the community and partners, he goes back to his love for sports, being a former basketball coach and sports consultant, by writing a weekly sports column at Sunstar Davao. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Paul McCoy Samante.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sir Justin. Can I ask Sir Kin or anybody? Yeah, thank you very much. So sometime last year, we presented the first part of our pilot Do You program in Davao City with one barangay and 360 recipient stunted and malnourished children. So this time we will be sharing some of the developments from what we have been doing from the first part up to the current. So after the first phase, we are now into the phase 2 of the program in ensuring the sustainability of the DUYOG program, which is encouraging the parents of the beneficiaries, the children themselves, to engage in urban gardening. So this is how we have been doing the program for the community. Next, please. So to encourage the parents to really pursue urban gardening, we issue them certificates para ganahan naman. So these are the certificates of the parents and the families who were able to grow their own backyard gardens, vegetable gardens. And it was conducted by one of our own team members in the office. Next slide, please. There in the community. So these are the parents of the children who were our beneficiaries. When we started the program of feeding their children, we really emphasized the importance of having the participation of the parents, similar to Dr. Ration's program. The importance of the partnerships was heavily emphasized in our program as well. So we really tap into the parents to really encourage them to continue providing, because we cannot provide for so long. We have to make it sustainable. And part of the sustainability component is really to help them grow the vegetables in their own backyards. So this is one of the trainings that we conducted. Next, please. So the resource person himself, part of our program, has his own vegetable garden at his own backyard. So while we can always tap the resource persons from the agri sector, from our agribusiness courses, we opted to tap the experience of a non-agri business sector resource person para may connect. That's the purpose of it. The community will be able to connect to how our resource person, Sir Dadong here, was able to make his own urban garden at his backyard. So na-encourage naman sila. Next. Yeah. So those are the parents, and they do the initial gardening there in the that's the Hope Kababaihan headquarters, and also the home of Mamu. So she's one of the community organizers in the place we work with. Okay, next please. So that's for the phase 2 of that particular barangay, and from that particular area, we were able to expand it to 10 more barangays in the city. So we are now working with 10 barangays. So out of the 10 barangays, we have 7 active barangays. It's just that we cannot complete the 10 yet because of the current transition of leadership in government. So some barangays opt to delay the implementation in their barangay, but it's already approved and in the pipeline in their own barangay programs. Next, please. So this is the usual process that we do. But before we were able to reach the barangay, we did some initial talks and meetings with the City Nutrition Council. That is what made the partnership with the barangays much easier. Getting the buy-in of the City Nutrition Council to help us in our Duyog program for the various barangays. So with them, they served as an intervention to be able to reach out to the various barangay captains, the nutrition scholars, so that when we go to the community, it's not only the Duyog program going there, but it's really part of a bigger program engaging the city as well. Next, please. So once we are in the barangay, the same process happens. We conduct a parents' orientation on why we will be doing the program. So we explain how the program will run and what are the different phases of the program. So ngayon, it's phase 1 for the 7 barangays, while for 6, while the 7th barangay is already on phase 2. We opted for a pilot kasi we wanted to smoothen all the processes before engaging the other barangays. So once it's there, the parents' orientation, we proceed to the next part of the actual feeding component. Next, please. So these are the different beneficiaries of the feeding in the different barangays we have. Next, please. Yeah. So Barangay Talomo, that's the barangay nutritionist with our Hope Kababaihan volunteers. These are the first barangay volunteers that we work with. So for this current implementation, we are catering to 248 identified stunted children in the 10 barangays. The youngest is 2 years old and the eldest is 12 years old. In 3 barangays, at least an average of 30 to 35 children are identified by the barangay nutrition scholars. So the partnership between the program and the barangay nutrition scholars helped us really target those stunted children. So the intervention of the DUYOG is really for them. Okay, next. So these are some snapshots of the pictures. In our first implementation, medyo hirap kami sa timbangan. But in this current work with the barangay, wherein we were able to coordinate everything with the barangay already, mas napadali yung proseso. And we also provide them with the food packs, yung food containers nila. Ang partnership with the barangay here is that the DUYOG program provides the healthy ingredients for the snacks and the meals of the children. And then it's the barangay who prepares. So they organize their own barangay volunteers to prepare the food for their recipients. Kasi hindi naman po ganun karami sa particular barangay. Some barangays would have 10 or more, 10 or less. Some barangays would have at least 50 recipients. So very manageable in terms of identifying and distributing it. And then some barangays would opt also that the parents would prepare it for their children. So it's just turned over to the barangay, and then the barangay will turn it over to the parents and the families will prepare it for their children. And the progress of the weight of the children are regularly monitored. Next, please. So those are our barangay nutrition scholars and some volunteers preparing. So it becomes a community project, not only from the university, but it involves everyone in the community. Okay, next. Yan, so sinusukat din yung height. Yan, pinapakain mga bata. Next. Yan. Okay, next. So these are all snapshots now of the ongoing program. And we're just very happy with the partnership we have established with the City Nutrition Council, the support that they have extended for the program. How we have expanded it to 10 barangays more is really something very, very thankful and helpful for us. We are thankful for it, and it's also helpful for the implementation of the program. Next. And so more children eating. Next. So these are some of the parents and the beneficiaries. Okay. Yun. So I'd like to end by sharing that some government organizations and agencies are already taking note of the programs we are doing as well, and as well as some private individuals. So ang ano lang talaga is we just have to start working on a good idea, and then this idea catches the fancy of people who would like to support, and the support will come in. So at this point, I'd like to thank all the partners, our benefactors, the people who helped establish the DUYOG program for helping us sustain it at least for another year. We look forward to more partnerships that can really help in the and we thank the organizers for inviting us to share our DUYOG experience. Daghang salamat and magandang hapon.
Thank you very much, Sir Makoy. It's wonderful to hear the developments in the Duyog program, showcasing the importance of buy-in among various members of the community, of partnership, and the importance of sustainability for programs such as this to flourish. So thank you very much. For our next speaker, he is currently the executive director of the Xavier Science Foundation, a foundation that closely works with Xavier University-Ateneo de Cagayan and other development partners in northern Mindanao. It supports outreach programs and researches in the fields of sustainable agriculture, asset reform, and natural resource governance, food processing, renewable energy, and environmental conservation. He was former Dean of the College of Agriculture of Xavier University and holds an MSc in Agriculture, major in Environmental Resource Management from the University College Dublin, Ireland. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ruel Rabanera.
Thank you. Thank you, Justine. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Maayong hapon sa inyong tanan. Allow me to approach our theme in today's webinar, Food Education and Empowered Development, from a broad perspective in appreciating its importance. We have always viewed food security in segments and in isolation. Production, processing, consumption. Similarly, we have addressed the constraints singly without much attention on the impact on other factors that may undermine the very reason for such an intervention. For example, we have sprayed pesticides to control insect pests and mindful of its impact on biodiversity and the environment that could have strengthened nature's ability to support these services over a period of time. Similarly, our food consumption has been dominated by convenience, sacrificing the long-term impact of nutrition on our well-being. And yet, when one digs deeper, one realizes that they are all interconnected. The decision on what to eat affects the producers, the processors, the transport system, and all in the entire food value chain. That the chemicals sprayed in the vegetable gardens ends up in our plates. That our choices and decisions collectively affect our economy. We have taken this for granted for a long time now. We have allowed to be swayed by advertisements, packaging, and convenience. That despite the call for food sovereignty, we continue to patronize global food corporations to supply most of our food needs despite their impacts on our health, environment, and our economy. Because of this, the food situation in our country has worsened and has become unacceptable. The state of affairs is short of the government declaring it a food and hunger crisis. A Filipino child born today is likely to reach only 52% of his or her future potential. 1 in 3 children younger than 5 years old suffered from stunting in 2019, being small in size for their age. Moreover, 19% are underweight for their age, and 6% of children below 5 years old are classified as wasted, being underweight for their height. Surely we need to take actions to feed the hungry, especially the hungry and malnourished children. This is an urgent necessity. But we should not stop there. We need to ensure that food is available, accessible, affordable, and secure at all times. We need to ensure the food is adequate. It must be healthy, nutritious, and culturally acceptable. This will only happen, however, when we are able to change our mindsets. We have to understand food security from a holistic and systemic perspective. We need to appreciate the interconnectedness of various components and address the problems in its totality. Yes, this is not easy. Thus, food education or re-education, I might say, is deemed a necessity. Each one has to be educated on the importance of food security and how each one of us, from the different sectors, disciplines, professions, can contribute to its full attainment. Moreover, those playing critical roles, especially the farmers, fisherfolk, indigenous communities, food processors, and retailers, whose contribution are relegated, should be recognized and given the due importance. As the theme of this webinar aptly articulated, they should be empowered. This will take time given the situation we are in, but the challenge is for us to take the first step in the right direction. We have initiated one in Bukidnon where the church, academe, civil society organizations have come together to build a platform on ensuring food security. Allow me to show a short video of this initiative.
In April of 2021, the Jesuit Philippine Province promulgated the renewed province plan, and Xavier University, for its part, really took it very seriously. There was a committee that was formed in the university to be able to plan out in terms of how these 5 thrusts of the renewed province plan is going to be implemented. So one of the thrusts is feed the hungry, specifically the children. This was tasked
Sorry.
to the social development cluster. Can you show the video? Under the leadership of Vice President Roel Ravandera,
Okay.
So in April of 2021, the Jesuit Philippine Province promulgated the renewed province plan, and Xavier University, for its part, really took it very seriously. There was a committee that was formed in the university to be able to plan out in terms of how these 5 thrusts of the renewed province plan is going to be implemented. So one of the thrusts is feed the hungry, specifically the children. This was tasked to the social development cluster under the leadership of Vice President Roel Ravandera, the supplemental feeding program in Zamboanguita, Balay-Balay, Bukidnon. This is 6-month supplemental feeding program. His official name is Come Feed My Lambs, under the Mary Mediatrix of All Grace Parish, under Father Noel Baba of the Society of Jesus. The university really considers and takes to heart the irreversibility of the effects, and impacts of malnutrition, undernutrition on children. So it looks toward a future generation of children that are healthy, that are capable mentally, spiritually,
socially, and psychologically. So there's a multi-pronged approach to our feeding program because we only not want to feed the kids who are undernourished, but we also want to teach their parents and their guardians how to prepare cheap but nutritious meals. We also are teaching them how to market, how to budget the money that they have, how to look for resources all around. We have told the parents that this program is different from other feeding programs because we want to make sure that the kids really gain weight, and we do this by making it a scientific approach to feeding. Like for example, instead of once a week, we would feed the kids 5 times a week. And then also we want them to undergo some medical examination. So our feeding program is also geared towards developing responsible cooperation of the parents. It's not just simply dole out.
So who are the members of this Thrust number 2 platforms? Of course, Xavier University, again, through the Social Development Cluster, but specifically, the College of Agriculture is very much engaged in Thrust number 2, and also Xavier Science Foundation and the Bukidnon Mission District of the Society of Jesus, not just as a partner, as a main beneficiary of the platform.
Importante kay ma'am, salamat sa ko nga naka-appel akong apo ani niya. Amo sa mga silingan among giaghat.
What do we need so that we can continue to implement these proposed initiatives? Of course, there is the financial, there's also the human resource that's needed in the module making, in the capacity building, training of our communities here in Bukidnon. Also, even in terms of facilities, if these are available within communities or partner communities, these are also very much welcome. And we would also like to harness the kanang collaboration of many stakeholders.
As a parish priest of Sambongita Parish, Mary Mediatrix of All Grace Parish, I thank you for taking the time to come here to really visit our place and to see for yourselves the beneficiaries of this program.
Thank you, Kian. Thank you, Gail. The supplemental feeding program is situated in Barangay Sambuanguita, Malaybalay City, Bukidnon. It initially catered to undernourished kids aged 2 to 6 years old of the parish. With the pandemic and other external factors, there have been a number of challenges, and some changes have to be integrated into the program. In the meantime, a more urgent situation arose within the parochial territory where indigenous community of Talaandig descent swarmed the area. Investigations reveal that kids numbering from 50 to 150 eat only 1 meal a day. Moreover, a great number of adults, children, and infants have various skin rashes that need medical attentions. Many young women, some are as young as 14, are pregnant and need checkup to make sure their babies are healthy. In all these endeavors, we need to get everyone involved, especially the students and the young generation. Here at Xavier, let me now share with you the Bilin project, an online app conceptualized and developed by our junior computer studies students as a response to SDG 2, the Zero Hunger, and SDG 12, responsible consumption and production challenges. Bilin, that's the app, it provides a wider avenue for XU feeding stakeholders to take part in the following. First, providing healthy food for the hungry from the surplus of their food supplies. Two, rescuing healthy food nearing expiration dates for distributions to needy communities affected by natural or man-made disasters or calamities. Volunteering to transport the food supplies from the food source to XU. And number four, volunteering during scheduled feeding events and relief response to operations. Later on, this will be discussed more by James, one of our students here. We think that these are good first steps. Nevertheless, they are but first steps. We are hoping that the academic community can take the lead in spreading food education to heighten public awareness and empower those who play significant roles in ensuring food security. Daghan kaayong salamat. Let's work together. Salamat kaayo sa tanan.
Thank you very much, Sir Well. Thank you for bringing to light the importance of a systems thinking approach in relation to food. Truly, as you've mentioned, all are interconnected, and there's much work that needs to be done, especially on the realm of food education, and as you've mentioned, food re-education, in order to create not only a sustainable but ultimately a regenerative food system. The Bilin Project is also a very inspiring example of initiatives that showcase how such work for food systems can come from very novel approaches. By the way, for all of you who are watching, if you have questions for our speakers, feel free to type them in the chat, whether in Zoom or YouTube, anytime during the program. We will ask them to our speakers later during the open forum, and we'd like you to include your name and affiliation, please. Thank you. In this next section of our webinar, I'd like to invite everyone to listen to 3 sets of reactors who will respond in some way to the speakers that we had, furthering our insights into what we've heard so far in the webinar. Our first reactors are currently third-year students at the Ateneo de Manila University. They are taking up Bachelor of Science in Restaurant Entrepreneurship, and they've always been passionate about being of service to the larger community. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Beatrice Sofia Villamor and Ms. Leila Milana.
Hi, good afternoon po. Thank you so much to Sir Justin for that wonderful introduction. And we'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all the organizers for making this event possible and for shedding light on such an important issue. So as RENT students taking up restaurant entrepreneurship, we are compelled to do more for the agricultural sector and to really use our skills and our future careers to be able to benefit the sector in all the ways that we can. So yes, firstly, for Dr. Arashon, we'd really like to say thank you for that wonderful presentation. We got to learn so much, and in the pandemic, it's really clear that there's so many issues that have just gotten much worse, and the prevalence of hunger has already been such a big issue here in the Philippines. And thank you so much for what you've done both through ASED, and it's really inspiring because the connection between nutrition and education is very important. And it's really sad to know how many children are really suffering, and to be able to listen to the stories like the one you've shared po, because so many families are struggling just because they don't have the access to eat nutritious food. And this is an issue that we really need to do something about, and it's really heartbreaking. So thank you for sharing that with us po. And to share my own experience with that po, Sir Kin, can you kindly share your screen po? I remember po you mentioned, Dr. Arashon, about getting the direct help from the farmers. And this reminded me of a personal initiative that I undertook in the pandemic. Being very heartbroken as to what was happening around, I felt very compelled to do something for the larger community. And so I sold cookies for a cause and donated 100% of the profit to different families in need, especially those who were hungry. And instead of just donating money, one of the greatest problems that I realized in the pandemic was that a lot of farmers were losing their produce, and these were just being wasted because no one would be buying them, and they didn't have the opportunity to be able to sell them to the market because of the lockdowns that were occurring. So Kin, could you kindly scroll down, please? Oh, can you go to the next slide? Sorry. Yes, the next picture. So through that, what we did was to be able to partner with different organizations, such as the Angat Buhay program of the Office of the Vice President. And what we did was to purchase vegetables from our local farmers. And through this, we were able to help jeepney drivers and different urban poor communities through the money that we gained from cookies alone. And we were able to feed around 200 families with the vegetables itself. On the next slide, please. So I'm just sharing this because I think it's important to note that even as a student, no matter how limited you might feel with your capabilities, if there's something that you want to do, if you are given the ability to be able to do something for others, then you should not be limited by self disbelief or with all the things that are limiting you from helping, because there are always people that want to help. So if you have the opportunity to gain and garner the support of others, then you should definitely take it. And it was very inspiring to see how many people supported this simple cause just from an idea of selling cookies. We were able to raise around almost around 30,000 from 3,000 cookies alone. And we were able to support different farmers and feed residents of Sitio Puras in Barangay Sambag. So hello sa mga taga Cebu diha, sa mga taga Cagayan. And this is just very inspiring overall. So I will now pass it on to Leila for her reactions as well.
Thank you so much for that, Bea. I think moving forward also, take into consideration Mr. Mark Samante's take on this webinar. I think I love how he encapsulated the Duyog program through #MakeItHappen. I think it's so inspiring how we can achieve sustainability even with our own efforts. So we can see that through the efforts of the urban gardening. And I think we're also called to do such acts kasi we're not limited to it also. I think it makes it an eye-opener that even us, especially during the pandemic, na we are also capable of doing such urban gardening. And moving forward, it was inspiring also to see how they were active in expanding to 10 more barangays. I think we can see the progress from here. And it's these small steps that grow to bigger progress and the development that, yes, it's the success and yung happiness na you achieve that with all our hard work, with our partnerships, with our beneficiaries, with the volunteers, the scholars, and all those involved, it makes it an inspiring movement, an inspiring community project that you are so encouraged to help these children and you're going beyond your means to make it happen for them. Make it happen that they also live a holistic development, to live a holistic life moving forward, that they are also a part of this world, a part of a community where they are cared for, and that they should be considered moving forward, being the future of our world or the future of our generation. And it also calls for what Mr. Ruel Ravanera discussed with regards to our food education, how food education can empower those in ensuring food security. It's a call on the long-term impact of nutrition on our well-being. It's a call that we should take care of our well-being, and that we are also reminded of our interconnectedness in the food system, or in our food value chains, that our own steps, that our own movement can affect and will affect moving forward everything else that moves around us, whether us consumers, producers, and all those agents involved. And moving forward, I think I was really hit by a Filipino child born today is likely to reach only roughly 52% of their full potential or future potential. And I think it's the chances that we provide them through these community projects, through these initiatives that make it happen, as Mr. Mr. Mark discussed a while ago, na gives them the future, gives them the hope that they can move forward and actually be a part of our movement. And so thus we're called for that change, and we are called for that mindset, to change our mindsets, to re-educate us so that we can also give necessity to food security and the food importance in our lives. So Bea, any final thoughts on this?
Yes, thank you so much for that, Leila. And we'd also just want to acknowledge that we're actually taking up a food justice class under Sir Justin Badion. And we'd really like to emphasize how, even as young members of society, we can do so much. And the call for empowerment is very important, because to be able to empower and uplift our farmers is very, very significant, especially in our time today. And we have to call for systemic, sustainable change, because hunger is a multifaceted, multidimensional issue. And if we're able to gather our resources and help one another, then we could definitely be able to do something through just simple actions, and little ripples of change could manifest in a bigger impact. So thank you very much, po.
Thank you very much, Bea and Leila, for the wonderful reaction that you've shared and the stories that you've shared as well. Um, it's it's good to see the efforts that you took to not only listening here in this webinar, but also in your own ways, in your own lives, being able to participate in the call for food education and empowerment. That it's wonderful to hear. So thank you very much for sharing that. So our second reactor is an incoming fourth year student taking up Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, Secretary General of the Xavier University Assembly of Extracurricular Organizations. He is an officer under the Technology Department of the Google Developer Student Club Xavier, and is one of the founders and project head of DLIN, the food donation app, an entry shortlisted for Global Top 50 in the international competition Solutions Challenge 2022. Let's all welcome Mr. James Day Panganiban.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Sir Justin. Yeah, I'd also like to thank the organizers as well, especially Sir Joaquin for assisting me, and Ma'am Gail De La Rita from Xavier University to allowing me to talk on behalf of the students of Xavier University. Please allow me to share my screen as well. I prepared a little PowerPoint presentation about my talk. Well, that would be fine, right? Okay. Can anybody see my screen now? Is this fine? This is very small. Sorry if this is too formal, like PPT talk. Anyway, some reactions that I'd like to first is congrats on Adu, and Xavier University for continuing these initiatives, these projects, despite despite the challenges that we are facing, especially that we actually had a hard time. I'm pretty sure everyone has had a hard time in the pandemic, during the pandemic, yet people still continued to do initiatives, not only the universities, but I've heard as well from Beatrice and the others, the first reactors, that they were able to continue trying to help people. trying to do community involvement projects. The first that caught me from the speakers was from Dr. Oracion. I personally found the soup kitchens. It was not a soup kitchen. It was a kitchen to help the kids, to allow people cook have cooked meals for their kids. It was something very touching to me because it's very in line to the project that I'm doing. And just a little context, there isn't that much in the Philippines that does these things. Like you have to find fast, you have to find it more people who are doing this, and there isn't that much people yet. That this thing is very special sa mga people who doesn't get to eat every day, and there are still people who are doing this stuff. Another as well is from the garden. There isn't much that I could can, although it's a very amazing project also that I found it amazing that people would still do that, and that maka-help again, and it would still help the community. My talk isn't that much about the overall, though I've been in here in the webinar. I was able to join the first webinar that the organizers were able to do. I was able to attend that because it was in line to what I was doing. So some context also as well. My talk would be more of a suggestion also as well. It's about innovating the solution. It's very weird seeing people. People find it weird. My classmates find it weird. I mean, surprising. Na I'm a computer science student, very very far from what I do. Yet, people, I already consider myself as a food waste advocate. Me and my team does. It's very far, and even myself, I get shocked sometimes. Na I'm already starting to do these things. So what I mean by innovating a solution is that the universities has already created this project, the solutions. Yet there are more that needs to be solved. There are a lot of problems, and today is an opportunity that we get to innovate our solutions more. By innovating is adding some technology in it. Very weird, computer science student ako. Adding a technology on it, it's a very good way, since this is 2022 and the pandemic forced us to make use of technology that we have today. And you've seen that in our education, we were able to adopt. I think our projects and solutions can also adapt into using technology as well to improve our impact on our people, on the community. And I would say, lastly, get students involved. There are still students who still want to do this. I would find myself shocking that I was able to be involved with Ma'am Gail and the others from the SD. There isn't much. I haven't done any student involvement stops last December. I've only done this ever since January, and now I'm very motivated and very passionate in what I do with this, despite my courses. So what's this? Just for this, for context then, Solutions Challenge 2022 is the thing that made me push to do community involvement projects. Solutions Challenge 2022 is a international competition by Google. Its mission of 2022 Solutions Challenge is to solve for one or more of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals using Google technology. It's a hackathon basically. It's a way to get students involved in the problems that we are facing today. It's also a way for the Google company to promote their tech and test their tech. Solutions Challenge 2022 is by Google Developer Students Club, something that I'm part of, and it started last January 2022. Actually, it's still ongoing right now for going for top 10. They have announced their top 10, and they're going for who's going to have the top 3. And it's a very big competition that took 6 months of doing something. And me and my team participated in a Solutions Challenge 2022, and we created Billion, the food donation app. Billion is a project that composed of four members. It's with my teammates, James, Kathy, Suzanne, and I. I think they're also here watching. I'm not sure, but they know that I'm talking about Billion right now. And Sir Joaquin, would it be fine? Would it be fine for everyone to watch the 2 minute video entry that we've submitted to Google? That entry, our entry of food donation, the Billion the food donation app, allowed us to be shortlisted for global top 50, and we are proud that we not only represented Xavier Ateneo but Philippines as well. Sir Joaquin, would it be fine if share screen?
In the Philippines, 20% of the population doesn't get enough food every day. We have to ask ourselves, how can the country, which reportedly wastes 1,717 metric tons of food a day, still have a prominent hunger issue? We at Bilin are trying to change this problem. We are prioritizing the donation of surplus food to tackle the SDGs, Zero Hunger, and responsible consumption and production. Bilin, made with Firebase as its backend, is a platform that makes the donation process easier, allowing forward-thinking people and businesses to connect with nonprofits and community pantries that need their help the most. The site will serve as a platform where food donors can locate NGOs and community pantries through Google Maps. This way, they can easily reach out to and connect with nonprofits to agree on how to work together to have the surplus food delivered and distributed. Nonprofits can also create events such as feeding programs and food drives that will be visible on the application's map to aspiring volunteers. With this, nonprofits could get the much needed manpower without having to manually track down the volunteers. Bilin also has a secondary function. Since the Philippines is hit with countless devastating typhoons every year, Bilin can act as a donation platform for the Red Cross to streamline its donation and fundraising efforts.
Bilin fits perfectly into the feeding and relief response initiatives of the university. Bilin provides a wider opportunity for many internal and external stakeholders to take part in responding to physical hunger, biased for those who have very little to no means of providing food for their households, and for children under poor nutrition conditions. Moreover, food producers are also provided a channel to mitigate, if not eliminate, food waste through this food rescue app, allowing them to contribute a solution instead of remaining to be part of a problem still to be solved.
If you want to achieve better results,
Okay. Wait. Yeah, that was it. It's only composed of 4 people. It was a requirement from the competition that has to be only us. I was the project head. Catherine was my co-project head, and if you've noticed, all 4 of us are really computer science students. It was the greatest hurdle we had to accomplish. None of us had community involvement projects, and we had to continue finding organizations who were willing enough to have an interest in food rescue. I mean, food rescue was very hard to push, and thankfully, Ma'am Gail and the others supported us for this project, and we were able to make it to top 50. And 2 weeks ago, we didn't make it. We sadly did not make it to top 10. Though we want to continue as much as possible, Bilin. And yeah, it's very hard for us. We're just thinking that for the top 50, even though we wanted the cash prize as much as possible, but we've come to realize in that 6 months span of trying to create Bilin, we realized na it's more than just the cash price of the competition. It's really trying to help people, and it's really trying to feed the people and trying to reduce the food waste management that we are already, it's already an arising problem. And we had to innovate something. And today, even though we lost for top 10, we are trying to find our ways to continue this project. Maybe in the near future, we would be a organization as well for food rescue. We are also trying to improve, trying to make the team bigger. Since we already ended the competition, we could make bigger teams, trying to connect with logistics, all those stuffs. Actually, in the top 50, we were able to have a pilot testing. I would send the website later if you guys are interested. We were able to really pilot test our project and through social development office through Ma'am Gail, and it spanned from June 20 to May, from May 20 to June 10, and we were able to reach 3K people in CDO. We created a Facebook page for this, and we had 300 page likes, and actually received donations good for 200 children on that span. We were able to say that we partially were successful, though there wasn't any businesses yet that were helping us. That was the main goal of Bilin, to allow businesses, food retailers, food producers to take part of this. But in this pilot testing event, there was just interested people. For future plans, we are going to try to rebuild, market our ideas to businesses and funding for Bilin, and really try to expand more into different cities as well, and find a network for this. I think that would be all. I'm just going to end my speech, my talk, in how Bilin started, because there was this thought about pagpag. It started with just the thought. I didn't know pagpag existed. I think that is how privileged I am. And I find it that I have to do something. If I am privileged enough to be in an Ateneo University, I have the technology. I am a computer science student, able to use technology, able to produce a new technology. I have to do something that has to connect to helping people. And I really thought pagpag was disgusting, and I wanted to fix that. And so I really decided to join the competition together with my team. And we had this simple thought. People want to donate. It's just that they find it very hard. And why does it have to be that way? We have to do something that allows people to help, to allow the community to encourage people in helping the unprivileged. So that is something that Bilin stands for. And it's more than that. We really want to bigger the broad, trying to do something. We want to connect what Ma'am Gail also wanted to do, which is something about the nutritious. We wanted to make sure that the surplus foods has to be nutritious, and it has to. And I've also listened to the ADMU, where it focuses on educating as well. And there are a lot of stigmas that are not yet broken in food waste. They think that it's just expired goods. They think it's just something that goes as the trash. We have to continue educating it, and this is our way. And we want to improve it more into educating the people about food waste and about food scarcity here in the Philippines. So that would be all. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, God bless everyone.
Thank you very much, James. And thank you as well to Team Bilin, Catherine, Suzanne, and James. It's wonderful to hear computer science students part of the possible innovations to the food system issues of today, such as food aid logistics management and food rescue. And don't worry, it's not unusual. I'm certain that for the students here, whatever your course or field of study is, I'm sure that there are ways to participate in helping create solutions for our food system realities. Our next sharer is the founder and president of the humanitarian organization for peace engagement, Hope Kababaihan Group. She is also the lead convener for the Mindanao Peace Council. I'd like to welcome Ms. Hope Fernandez Mendoza.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think I have to put off my cam. I look awful. Okay. In reaction to what Sir McCoy has shared earlier, we feel so blessed being chosen as one of their partners. I did not really, I thought before, feeding is just yung pakain lang, ganyan. And then nung ginawa nila yung programa na kailangan sukatin yung bata, timbangin yung bata, doon ko na-realize na programa pala to na talagang makakatulong dun sa mga batang hindi talaga nakakain ng mga pagkain na may nutritious value. Kasi dito nga sa amin, since yung barangay namin is more of the people mostly living below poverty line talaga. Mga anak ng mangingisda, anak ng construction worker, mga batang at saka merong mga families dito na abandon na yung mga anak, ang nag-aalaga yung mga lola, yung mga tiyahin. So when Ateneo, when Sir McCoy approached us and said, "Mamu, can you do this? Kayo magluto and all that, no?" So sabi ko, sure, no problem, kasi we have about 75 members within the community. The first challenge was when sinabi namin na, okay, ihahatid yung mga pagkain nearby, mga 500 meters lang away from our house, ganun. Ang problema is, pag yung iniiwan mo na yung mga food containers, hindi na ibabalik, no? And then, so ginawa naman namin na strategy naman is, sige, papuntahin ng mga magulang sa bahay, sila ang kukuha sa pagkain. Panahon yun ng pandemic, ha? So, bawal lumabas. Yung iba, sabi ng mga magulang, bawal kami lumabas, hindi kayo pwede pumunta dyan, ganun. So, ginawa ko, yung tricycle namin, ginawa kong taga-deliver, no? The problem is, nakita ko doon sa mga community, alam mo yung mga parents na parang hindi talaga sila interesado masyado. Yung parang, andyan na pala yung pagkain ng feeding natin. Wala yung anak ko, andun naglalaro. Kumbaga, wala silang ginagawang effort on their part na eto, programa to, feeding to para sa mga anak ko. Hindi nila nakikita yung concept na yon. No? So we called for meetings sa mga parents, nag-orientate, nag-ano naman kami, nagpaintindi kami sa kanila na meron din kayong role as a parent na ito, gaytong oras, kami nag-prepare ng food, Ateneo naghatid ng mga supplies. So all you have to do is just get this food for your kids. No? And then, sa reporting naman namin, pag sinabi namin, kailangan namin dalhin nyo dito yung mga bata for sa timbang, ganun. Ang mga parents are not so, parang cooperative talaga. Minsan pa nga, ang bata pa nagpupunta ito, asan yung nanay mo? Andun. Nagbibingo or nagkutongits, mga ganyan ba na ano. So, but then eventually, nakita namin na ang ginawa ko, pinamember ko yung ibang parents sa aming Hope Kababaihan, yung mga mother. And ask them to also volunteer to help with the cooking. So, ganyan na nangyari, no? So, masasabi ko, the first phase na wherein we had about almost 300 kids. Maganda naging unang resulta talaga, na nakita nila na nag-improve talaga yung weight ng mga bata. So imagine out of almost 300 kids, we went down to almost 60 na lang na talaga inaalaga. Ito na nga sa second phase namin, silang beneficiaries namin. So yung out of the 300 parents, almost half lang, hindi lahat talaga. Ang talagang nakita mo na they really appreciated the program, nakita nila na talagang beneficiaries nakapag-benefit talaga yung mga anak nila, ganyan. At saka appreciate ko rin talaga yung ginawa ng Ateneo na bumibili sila ng mga gulay galing sa mga farmers na siyang pinapamahagi nila sa amin. So malaking bagay yon. I'm also working with the IP communities kasi ng mga women farmers din. So napakalaking bagay nun kasi nakita ko na ang ganda ng programa, yung Duyog, kasi yung mga gulay na ginagamit namin dito sa pagluto nanggagaling dun sa mga farmers, no? Nakakatulong siya instead na dalhin pa nila sa main market, public market dito. Meron pang middleman. Ang Ateneo mismo, sila mismo ang kumukuha dun sa mga gulay para dalhin dito sa amin. So isa yan sa mga nakita ko na napakaganda ng naging resulta, no, para sa mga committee, not just dito sa city sa amin, kundi pati din doon sa mga farmers in upland areas. And also what I really appreciate was yung pagturo nila sa amin ng urban gardening, napakaganda, no? Kasi alam mo yung mga bahay-bahay dito, alam mo yung mga shanty-shanty sa iba. So andun yung parang, ay pwede pala kami magtanim pa rin ng kahit na ganyan. So now nag-harvest na sila ng kalang kamatis, tanglad, doon sa mga urban containers na yon, yung mga sibuyas, no? So we really appreciated that and proud sila dahil proud sila dahil nakapagpatubo sila ng ganung mga gulay, no? So yun, meron lang akong suggestion na sana mas reach out pa kami doon sa mga communities, especially doon sa mga lugar ng mga IP areas kasi andun talaga yung mga grabe na meron pa rin mga malnourished kids talaga. You know, na talagang at sila talagang kailangan nila talaga to, especially the education, eto mga awareness program na ginagawa ng Ateneo na yung mga training para sa mga nanay, napakalaking bagay. Ni-request na ako ng mga IP women group ko na nasa mga far-flung areas na mga sana makarating naman yan dito yung ganyang feeding ng Ateneo. Kasi at saka para maturuan din kami. So yun, kumbaga marami nang naiinggit na mga ibang mga barangays. Ay sana kami rin maging beneficiary ng Ateneo. So as an advocate of women and children, you know, in Mindanao, in the city, this feeding program, this Duyog of Ateneo, lalo ang ganda ng kanyang title, Gasagikan sa Ginoo. So as the head also of the women ministry of our church, I try to impart this also sa mga kasama namin sa church na hindi lang food for the soul, you know, kundi ito rin impart din natin ito na para bang may kailangan ng mga bata na pakain ng ganito, ng mga nutrition schools, dahil nga so far nga dito ngayon sa amin is napakalaki ng what you call this, ng mga may sakit na mga bata, na batang-bata pa lang may mga may mga sakit na sa kidney, mga diabetic na ganon. So sa bawat meet, I conduct a meeting with my kababayan every last Saturday of the month. So yun sinishare ko na napakalaking bagay nitong feeding program na ito kasi natututo tayo ano mga dapat natin ipakain sa mga bata. Hindi lang yung mga noodles, hotdog, yun naman ang madaling lutuin, no? Tapos may sumagot pa na paano nung panahon pa ng pandemic, paano naman mamo, ang ayuda puro naman kasi dilata lang, sardinas, beef loaf at noodles. Wala naman kami ibang makain na. No? So yung ganyan ba, no? So again, I hope and I pray that we'll be able to reach out more children out there, especially in the IP areas. In fact, even my Muslim community sa Davao Oriental nag-request din na sana mamo kami rin magkaroon ng ganyan. You know, so also naiingit ako sa presentation ni Doktora nung yung first slides na sana lahat ng LGU meron ganung kitchen na talagang sila namimili ng mga kasi kami ang challenge sa akin nung una, wala kaming kalderong malalaki. Wala kaming, so nag-arkila kami dun sa isang nagpapakater dati kasi hindi naman lang nagagamit. So nagbabayad kayo pati yung mga lutuan, ganyan. And then hanggang sa merong isang kapitbahay na hindi naman din niya ginagamit na nagluluto-luto din sa mga fiesta. So napahiram sa amin yung mga kaldero nila. So yung ganyan na nakita ng mga nung community namin na nagtutulungan, alam mo, may isang NGO naman na group ng mga LGBT na partner namin na he's a chef na from Australia. He's managing a resort here near us. So sumamo, sige ako, magbibigay ako ng mga pagkain para sa mga volunteers mo na magluto, ganyan, dagdag na lang din namin. So may mga ganyan ba na tapos sa firewood din. Pag tag-ulan, hirap kami sa mga firewood, no? So nagkataon, yung mga bahay-bahay dito ngayon sa amin pinagsisira na dahil tatamaan sila ng expansion ng road widening. Pinagdadala dito ng mga kapitbahay yung mga kahoy nila, yung mga lumang kahoy. So yun, nakasave kami sa kahoy. So ganyan, nakapag-open siya sa eyes ng community. And they're so appreciative na merong isang institution na ito pinili yung mga bata namin dito sa barangay namin. Though may mga sinasadya sila na ibang purok na meron dito mga malnourished kids, ganyan. So we work hand in hand with the barangay, with the BNS of the barangay. So I just would like to say really, we're so grateful, we're so thankful. You know, in fact, ngayon, kaya ako ganito itsura ko kasi nagpapamakeup ako. I'm the newly elected Vice President of the Rotary Club of Davao 2000, and I've asked them to also be a partner with us in this feeding program for our community. That's all, and thank you again, and good luck and more power to all of us. Thank you.
Salamat po, Miss Hope. I share in your sentiments that feeding is so much more than pakain. There's so much that goes into ensuring the health and wellness of children through nutrition. No? Salamat talaga. And thank you so much for being partners to the Duyog program, and thank you for your work with IP farmers as well and your advocacy for women and children. And nung nakikinig ako, despite the challenges and difficulties, your efforts really showcase the lengths that one can go to really be part of something bigger than oneself. Thank you so much. Salamat.
Salamat po. Thank you.
I'd like to thank our speakers and reactors for all that they have shared with us this afternoon. Now we will move to an open forum where members of the audience can direct questions they may have for various panel members. Maybe we can start with this first question. This first question is for Dr. Oracion. Is ACE geared towards maintaining the food packs compared to the in-school feeding programs because of the greater reach, including family members, as we move to a more normal face-to-face class setting?
Yes. Yes. Sorry. Yes, Sir Justin, I'm sorry. That's our direction now. One important reason, as you mentioned, is the greater reach. But at the same time, because of the uncertainties related to COVID-19, returning to in-school feeding programs may not really be wise. No? I mean, you know, there are all sorts of schedules that will be followed, absences here and there. So it may not be wise to do that. Besides, this is also very helpful to many people. I mentioned to you the farmers. I would also like to mention the jeepney drivers who transport the food packs to us from Ateneo to the schools.
So our next question, this one is for all our panel members. What are important measures, policy proposals that should be on the legislative priority of the incoming Congress in relation to food security? Sir Makoy, yes.
I think in terms of legislation, ensuring that food is reaching the people, yung support for the agri sector, I think is very important. That support coming from the government is also beneficial for the farmers. Kasi nga yun yung sinasabi natin na yung from the farmers to the market, may maraming dinadaanan, and luging-lugi yung mga farmers natin pag yun yung regular route ng ating mga products. In our experience dito, when we engage our farmers directly, we get the produce as low as 5 pesos. When comparing it to the market, yung 5 pesos na yun, nagiging 15, 20 pesos. So if we are able to address that through legislation, I think malaking tulong yun in ensuring that food is manageable and affordable for everyone.
I'll move on to a next question. This one is from Dr. Vivian Panes of the Ateneo de Manila University for Dr. Oracion. The Philippines is rich in biodiversity. I'm just wondering if your organization deals with topics on food alternatives, such as making use of underutilized crops in the country that can be explored as food sources. Does the meal package distributed by ACE provide a balanced diet? For instance, meat products, fish, and poultry are expensive. Thus, legumes and other seeds can be explored as food sources.
Okay. We are not 100% sure that the food packs contain balanced meals. However, we try very hard to bring in as much nutritious food as possible. Yes, we reach out to the farmers for alternative food. Legumes are certainly a part of what we provide them as long as these are available. We are also able to augment food sources, food contents in the packs, as I mentioned, because we're able to rescue food. So sometimes there's chicken provided to us, there's a fish provided to us, so there's eggs provided to us. So sometimes we include these in the food packs whenever available.
I have another question here from Divino Bauson of St. Luke's College of Medicine. I just want to know how and where, as medical students, can we extend our skills into this complex food system, especially since closely tied ang healthcare ng children and the food system?
On our part, we welcome volunteers from the health sector. We have regular volunteers from the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health. In fact, they have a course where they field their students to ask for a certain project, learning experiences in communities. And together with these assigned students, we come up with projects that are beneficial to the sector we serve. Yeah. So we'll welcome that, Sir Justin. They can reach out to us.
This next question is from Wilma Salas. May I ask po whether the act of organizing programs requires the involvement of professional nutritionists and other health professionals relative to food preparation and distribution? On the issue of marketing of agricultural products, can it be viable that farmers be led to organize a cooperative that would work to market, to transport, and to store their produce? So that's the question from Wilma Salas.
On the second question, I think certainly that would be useful. Maybe there are groups who are into organizing cooperatives or not. I don't know if there are any individuals here involved in that. What we do is to coordinate with the Department of Agriculture so that transportation is provided, especially on occasions where there's a lot of surplus for certain food products. On the first one, I'm sorry, can you kindly repeat the question on the first one?
Yes, for the first one, they're asking if organizing programs requires the involvement of some sort of professional nutritionist and health professional relative to the food preparation and distribution.
Uh-huh. Okay. I hope you'll allow me to respond to that question in this manner, no? Maybe somehow this is contained in the poem that I place in the end. Hunger is an urgent concern. So there's no time to put things together on paper before addressing the problem of hunger. So on our part, we believe in an iterative approach. As soon as we're ready with something that is implementable, syempre you'll think about it naman, no? And see if it's reasonable, if it's doable, if it makes sense, and so on. So once you're ready with a little something, then we implement right away. We don't believe in meeting and coming up with papers and proposals, and in the end, paralyzing the project. No? I don't know if I'm saying it properly, but that's what I believe in, and I see that Sir McCoy is smiling, so maybe he believes me too. But once we're ready with a little something, then you have to address things right away because people are hungry. And I mean, no child should be allowed to go to bed hungry, and no child should wake up not knowing whether he or she will have something for breakfast. So that's my answer to that question. But we certainly welcome nutritionists and other health professionals if they can volunteer. Like our in-school meal programs, we subjected these to a study, no, as I quoted a while ago. So there, we also have an academic aspect to it. We requested an independent body to find out whether we were providing nutrition. So there, Sir Justin.
Thank you, thank you. So this next question is for all three of the panel members. This is from Michelle Piales of Xavier University. Feeding programs are helpful, especially to the small communities. How can we ensure that this type of program will be sustainable in a manner that it will then be initiated by people of the communities benefiting from the said program, considering the limited resources? Like, for example, the said program will be conducted to fisher folks and their income are seasonal. How can we ensure that this will be sustainable, and how can we check if there are any progresses in the future? So that question is really a question of sustainability of feeding programs.
Sir Justin, baka si Sir Ruel. will speak.
Yes. Oo, Sir Ruel, sige po.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Actually, I'd like to answer also some of the other questions that were raised earlier. On sustainability, for example, I think it's important to look at this from a broader perspective. While we are thinking of feeding, actually, like for example, in areas, especially in the rural areas, the food is there actually, and while there is a need, as mentioned also by earlier, that there is an urgency to really feed, and that's what we're doing. But in the long term, all these resources can actually be locally provided by the communities themselves. And that would require, of course, again, education and certain, process of appreciating the resources around them, and for them to, again, use them for their own, food security. I mentioned earlier about biodiversity and all the wild food and wild animals are there. There are so many available food also that can be used. And in fact, what we're doing right now is a little bit opposite to what we are wanting to do. We are having plantations, big banana plantations, for example, destroying the forest that we have that can in fact provide the needed food of the indigenous communities. Things like those are very important for us to consider. Nutritionists, yes, we need all this, and in fact, to a certain extent, this has already been being provided by DUST. To a certain extent, there are programs along that direction, and it's a matter of local government units or even indigenous, civil society organizations adopting these processes and programs. I also would like to touch base a little bit on the legislation that's required. Again, we need to look at this from a systems perspective. Our way of implementing food programs in our country is very segmented. Production, you give that to the Department of Agriculture. Marketing, that's DTI, or processing, whatever, you give that to DUST. When you go to the local area, those services are needed, together as one by these farmers and these communities. So there must be a platform in a way to address these concerns of the farmers. That all this should be in a way integrated. They are not, it's so difficult for a farmer organization to go from one agency to another. So they start with production, and then after that, what? They have to again go to DTI for marketing, and also again, I just go back to that systemic approach is really important for us. Thank you.
This next question is still for all of our panel members. This is from Ken Charles Roque of the University of Mindanao. How do you conduct the monitoring and evaluation for your feeding programs? What are the indicators that you use to measure the improvement of health and nutrition of the beneficiaries?
When the pandemic was not yet here, anthropometric measures were taken periodically. No? So that was good. But during the pandemic, we couldn't do that. So we put in place other measures like self-reporting on the part of the families. Performance in school is certainly one of our measures too. And what's helpful for us is that we're able to collaborate with either the schools, the principals and the teachers who tell us, for example, improvements in attendance, improvements in participation of the children in school activities, no? Or the community workers we coordinate with in relation to the health, no, and nutrition of the children in the first 1,000 days in life. For this particular sector, we also coordinate with the Barangay Health Center, and they're able to provide us information on the health status of the beneficiaries.
Does Sir Makoy or Sir Ruel also want to add to the question?
Thank you, Sir Justin. In addition to that, we ask the help of the barangay nutrition scholars in getting the data. It was a concern when we started, but when we evolved the program to involve the barangay and the City Nutrition Council, they were generous enough to take on the responsibility of doing the monitoring and the measurements for us.
Sir Ruel,
I think they have covered actually the monitoring and even the evaluation part of this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are so many more questions, but at this point we're a bit running out of time. But there's a lot more questions. Hopefully we can be able to maybe we can show these questions later to our panelists as well, just so they can have a sense of what the questions are about and the interest in the feeding programs, because there seems to be a lot of interest, a lot of wanting to get involved in some way. So that's also a very reassuring and heartening situation. So I'm very thankful to the audience as well, and people who asked questions and who also want to contribute in some way to our efforts here across the various Ateneos. For this next portion, Kim, do we have the slides for? All right. Now that we have reached the end of today's webinar, I would like to call on Dr. Emmanuel D. Delocado, Program Manager for Sustainable Development Goals at the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability and incoming Country Network Manager of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Philippines for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Sir Justin. Zero hunger. This is the second of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals which the global community sought to meet by 2030. Unfortunately, the world is off track in achieving SDG number 2 by 2030, as certified by this year's iteration of the Sustainable Development Report, or SDR, released by the SDSN, Sustainable Development Solutions Network Global Secretariat. In fact, before the pandemic in 2019, the United Nations estimated that 750 million people were exposed to severe levels of hunger. That's close to 1 in 10 people in the world. And in the past 2 years, understandably so, and unfortunately, the number almost doubled. Targets 2.1 and 2.2 of the SDGs aspire to ensure access to sufficient and nutritious food all year round by all people, in particular those in the vulnerable and unfortunate situations, and to eliminate stunting among children. This is the big picture in which the humble initiative of this working group aspires to contribute to. To this end, the Joint Working Group on SDG number 2 on Zero Hunger decided to organize FEED, Food Education and Empowered Development. FEED is a webinar series, as mentioned earlier, on feeding programs. For this first installment, we focus on the initiatives of the Ateneo universities in implementing feeding programs in their respective communities. From the talk of Dr. Mel Oracion, we learned the origins and evolution of Blue Plate feeding program of ACE, as well as how this contributes to their aspiration in elevating the state of public education. From the sharing of Mr. Hoy Samante, we learned that about the rolling out of phase 2 of the Duyog program, in which they promoted community gardens and engaged the parents to ensure the sustainability of the feeding program. Approach the topic from a broader perspective. He highlighted the necessity to look at the different aspects of food systems, not in isolation, and to foster a systems thinking mindset in approaching SDG number 2, which is what they have been doing in their university. From today's session, I would like to highlight 2 points. First, what we usually fail to recognize is that food security is not just an economic issue. Food supply and hunger are multifaceted issues. The issue on food supply is affected surely by one's personal economic standing, but is also shaped by national economic scenario, state of agriculture, national political landscape, efforts of local barangays, transport systems, infrastructures, and even man-made conflicts and climate change. Conversely, health security and nutrition, as we saw, also impacts quality of schooling and education, among others. Second, because of this multifaceted aspect, we can find marriage between our personal interests, hobbies, and values, and contributing towards meeting SDG number 2. Our speakers and even our reactors, Bea and Elise, James, Miss Hope, as well as the link posted by Miss Hillary, demonstrated how we can champion food security by capitalizing on our own strengths. Some may perceive it as a simple mobile app or a humble pandemic initiative, but these contribute to meeting targets 2.1 and 2.2. To quote from the prayer attributed to Saint Oscar Romero, we cannot do everything. And there is a sense of liberation in realizing this. This enables us to do something and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it's a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and to do the rest. Hopefully, we, the participants in this webinar, can do something which may be incomplete, but it's a beginning, in supporting the initiatives of different Ateneo universities and even finding how our personal interests align with SDG number 2 initiatives. As we draw this event to a close, we wish to thank Dr. Mel. Nice to see you again, ma'am. Sir McCoy, Sir Roel, for their valuable insights. We also thank Bea and Elise, James, and Miss Hope. Thank you, Sir Justin, for being our moderator this afternoon. Thank you also to the numerous offices and departments of the Ateneo de Manila, Ateneo de Davao, and Xavier University-Cagayan de Oro, who generously extended their support in organizing and promoting this event, especially to ADMO Campus Events Management Team who are with us this afternoon. Allow me to say in a very, very special way, the joint working group also like to thank Mr. Joaquin Campos, who has been the pillar in organizing not only this webinar, but the previous activities of the group, performing secretariat, publicity, tech support, among other roles in the events. Kin, good luck with what lies ahead, always in the name of service. And of course, we thank everyone for attending this session. We are happy to report that we are 156 attendees strong in this event. Please stay posted for the next installations of our feed webinar and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Dr. Eman. And once again, thank you, Dr. Mel, Sir McCoy, Sir Roel, and to our reactors for sharing your experience with our webinar participants today. And we hope to see you all in our upcoming webinars in this series. There will be announcements that will be shared further once the time comes. Salamat. Thank you very much. For evaluations, please open this link in the chat box. And you may also request for an e-certificate here. Yes. Yes, thank you everyone. Feel free to fill in their evaluations and to request an e-certificate. Thank you.
Congratulations, Sir Justin.
Congratulations, everyone. Thank you, Sir McCoy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sir Justin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and see you all, to our participants. See you all in future webinars.
Thank you. Thank you, Kin. See you around.
Thank you, Kin. Thank you, Kin.
Thank you.